Well, I think the challenge is that there's, as I said in my speech, lots of loose ends. So we have lots of reform going across a spectrum of police activity, be it police accountability at one end, Hutton and Windsor pay reviews at the other, which of course major concern to our officers. And in the middle we have the MPIA going and the NCA starting. So that's a massive amount of change. It's unsurprising that there are lots of things where we haven't got clarity yet, and the whole structure really of my speech was around an examination of what's going on and the question, we need more clarity please government before we move on so we can protect the British policing model.
But I think from within my own specialist domain, from within the public order domain, I think we have to make sure that the balance is absolutely correct in relation to Chief Constables retaining their operational independence. One of the questions that was raised with me in the forum was whether I would be, as a Chief Constable, saying yes or no to a police crime commissioner who pointed out to me that he didn't want me to use containment as part of my public order tactics. I did actually point out that my conversation with the police crime commissioner could be rather short and rather sweet, on the grounds that the government has given an undertaking to make sure that police chiefs will retain their operational independence. I would of course expect to be having conversations with the police and crime commissioner on the grounds that it is about making sure that the local communities are happy with the policing that's provided, but the operational tactical decisions have to remain with me, the police chief constable.
I think that there is one fundamental issue, and that was apparent on the first day of this conference when we heard Sir Hugh speak and then the Home Secretary, and that is around the question of clarity. ACPO's position has always been, it's not our remit to comment upon the sort of accountability and governance mechanism that we work within, but we do need, and we do have a right to, ask for clarity on how that system of accountability and governance will work. And the work that's being done now, as we speak, virtually in terms of setting the strategic requirements for policing and the protocol between PCC and Chief Constable, will be absolutely fundamental to getting this right.
Well, clearly the number one issue is still the financial situation and the huge budget reductions and the great pain that police forces are going through. So I think there's still lots of issues that we need help from the government on, changes of legislation, changes in the performance regime. Some of the things, to be fair, the Home Secretary talked about today, but clearly the budget situation is the number one concern, I think, of police forces generally. But then there are issues around the governance arrangements, the new police and crime commissioners, and really that concern about the future of the NPIA functions after the NPIA fails to, it no longer exists. And I think a lot of concerns around that.
It's my view that over the first months of the Policing the 21st Century consultation, individual chief officers were looking at issues one by one, and some were welcome, some were less welcome, some needed a bit more thought. I sense what's happened more recently, and it was summed up in Sir Hugh Ord's speech at the beginning of the conference, is that people are now looking more at the cumulative impact of all the changes, and we're also now nearly 12 months on in a position to make a progress check about those initiatives and those reforms that have made better progress and those where we haven't got as far as we'd like to. So I think that chief officers are beginning to feel a little nervous in one or two areas, but committed to having a sensible problem-solving dialogue with ministers to make sure that ministers get the reforms that they're after.
Well, I think one of the drivers for reform has always been quoted as the disconnect with the public. And I have to admit, from my perspective, that's a bit disingenuous, because in my policing career, I don't think that the police have been more connected. I can't remember a time when the relationship with the public has been as good as it is now. It's not perfect, and I would never claim it was, and there's still a lot more we could do. But there is a confidence and a relationship with our communities that we've not had in my career. Where the concern is that we don't lose that in the context of reform. We've got to keep that connect. We mustn't be too diverted by the enormous range of reform, and we've got to remember that ultimately we, myself and everyone who I work with, are only here to serve them out there and to make sure they're safe, and that must remain our absolute mission.
I think it's exciting. And I think it's going in the right direction because everybody's talking about accountability and democracy, and I think those are two key issues for me in any policing context. But if I can steal a line from Joni Mitchell, you don't know what you've lost till it's gone. And I think that's one of those issues that needs teasing out, which is why I think Sir Hugh's right about demanding clarity, because if we will only, I wouldn't want us to start regretting that we've lost something that we only recognise when it has actually disappeared.